What's up? What's up, guys? It's Ash here. I'm doing another dig here. Last night I was messing around on the computer looking up different things, and one of the things I was interested in was, like, are we traded as a stock? I did another video about that, or our birth certificates and things, and we already knew this. I watched videos years ago of people telling you, oh, you can look up your birth certificate, number on different sites. So I'm going to go into that later in this video. But when I was looking for something like the Human Stock Exchange, which is what the title of this video is, this dig, I came up with a bunch of interesting things, and I wanted to kind of go through some of it. So this is going to be a semi-lengthy video just because there's a lot of info here. We have to watch a couple videos and stuff, and I'm going to read you something that I found interesting on another website, all right? So this first lady, her name is Letitia Puy-Forché, I think is how you pronounce it. And she did a TED Talk, as you see here, in 2013 about the Human Stock Exchange, and I found that very interesting because I had never heard that term used really too much in the past. So that was my search term, and when I searched her, that's what came up, and a bunch of other stuff. So we're gonna watch maybe half this video. She has a very strong accent, which might make it hard for some people to understand. But we'll just we'll play it for a while so we can get the gist of what she's talking about, and then because I don't think she's necessarily talking about starting, doing this, but she's thinking about it in a different way, maybe from what I got from it. But we'll listen to this for a bit and then get into it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Letitia. I run a communication agency that is specialized in producing online content for big companies worldwide. 2 years ago, a client called me. He wanted me to create a compelling equity story to attract young people to invest in his blue chip company. It proved out to be impossible. Big companies have a big problem. Young people won't invest in them anymore. Instead, young people will invest in people. And by invest in people, I mean literally invest in people, not the HR blah blah way. Let me give you some facts. 45% of Generation Y think investment products are overly complex to confuse the average investors. And there are 46% to say they will never feel comfortable investing in the stock market. Okay, this is what they say, but what do they do? Actually, they do what they say. There are less than 13% to have stocks in listed companies. And their share aversion is sharply growing since 2001. Okay, so big companies may disappear, start from capital by the young generation. Before giving a death certificate to these big companies, they are my clients after all, I decided to give them a second chance. I did some academic research. This is where I met virtually Ronald Coase. Virtually because the poor guy died last year. He was 103 years old, so I think it's okay. In 1937, he wrote a book called The Nature of the Firm. And in its book, he answered this very question. Why do firms exist? According to Ronald, firms exist to decrease transaction costs. Transaction costs. The geek in me is now pretty alarmed. Because if there is something we know, is that in the digital age, transaction costs are crashing. They are crashing. Let's just give me an example of that you may be already familiar with. Take Kodak and Instagram. Kodak used to employ up to 145,000 people, but it filed for bankruptcy in January 2012. Whereas the very same year, Instagram was bought back by Facebook for $1 billion. Do you know how many employees Instagram at that time? 13 people. 13 people for Instagram, 145,000 for Kodak. Okay, bye-bye big companies. So, but what will the young generation do when they want to invest in an idea they believe in and they want to profit from? What will they do? The crowdfunding business boom may give us a clue, but I think we can take it a notch further. In a period where a young people, when you want to travel, doesn't rent a hotel room, but rent a bed in a friend's place, I think they will soon want to invest in one another. There will be a human stock exchange. Human stock exchange. These three words are quite scary. They scared myself. So what I did is that I typed them in Google. I had 3 results, only 3 results, 3 hits. The first hit was this red-eyed guy. Let me introduce you to Félix Fox. He is the creator of Xavier d'Horisson, a French comic book writer who released a comic book called Human Stock Exchange in 2011. Look at the watch of Félix. You can see his price, which is constantly changing, and the watch is monitoring all his vital statistics. Okay, but it's some kind of Western sci-fi, isn't it? Well, not really, because the second and third hit were coming from India. Naranta Narayan wrote a blog piece in 2006 where he described in 5 pages what a human stock exchange can be. And the third hit was even more interesting. It is from a young Indian girl, a 16-year-old girl in New Delhi, that has made a slideshow called The Human Stock Exchange, when she asked the state and NGOs to finance such a human stock exchange, because for her that's the only way to finance the dreams of Indian youth. And actually, celebrities have paved the way. I don't know if you remember, but in 1997, David Bowie issued a 55 million loan, and other musicians have followed. Iron Maiden, Rod Stewart, etc. In 2004, Anna Leibovitz, the celeb photographer, did the same. And it's booming again. Look at this guy, Arian Foster. He was supposed to hit the market in November 2013. Unfortunately for him, he broke his back 1 week before his IPO. Is it over? Not really. His peers, Davis Vernon, hit the market last week, in April 28. And if you want to know how he performed, he has done plus 50% since his IPO day. He is now listed $11.5 per share. It won't come as a surprise to Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman, in 1954, wrote a piece on education and its funding. And he said that stock in students would be profitable and could be a good way to finance education. And it is true, I don't know if there are some auditors in the room, that if you look at all the gadgets and apps that guru Nicola Felton is using to monitor his every move, you can now imagine that human beings are more traceable, quantifiable, analyzable than any company. This is what companies like PAVE have understood. PAVE has been founded in December 2012. On PAVE website, you can either invest in an individual, let's say give 50,000 grand to Clara, and get 3 to 4% of her future income, or you can invest in a bundle of people. Choose, what do you prefer? Women entrepreneurs, tech leaders, Columbia graduates, environmental fighters? You can choose. And you have magazines like Forbes that are publishing stories like 7 tips to succeed your self-IPO. Regulation is on its way as well. Senator Marco Rubio has introduced legislation this very April to define details of such investment vehicle that he called income share agreement. For those of you that will be interested in listed your children, I give you some details. The maximum length of the contract is 30 years, and the maximum share of the income you can give is 15%. Okay, so this is really happening. But what is it? Is it modern slavery? Is it indentured servitude back? For those who don't know, indentured servitude was a system back in the 18th century where young people, mostly British and German, were paying their passage to the New World by working 3 or 4 years to an employer. I don't think so, actually. I think we are used now to debt. And we think it's okay. And we think that equity in people is evil. I do quite feel the contrary. Debt is slavery, and equity may be the path for freedom. Let me tell you why. In debt, the risk is all on the borrower's side. The lender has no risk. The borrower has a lot of risk. If he's not doing well, he will not be able to reimburse. He will have his home taken, etc. In equity, the risk is equally shared between the people that have the money and give the money and the people that is receiving the money. So look at this guy. You first thought they were happy because the Champions League final. They are not. They are congratulating each other for your IPO. They have massively invested in you with a massive leverage. They finance your education. And for the rest of your life, they will take their dividends, i.e. income tax. Joke aside, I think it is worth looking at that and saying that maybe debt is not the solution. So let me jump to my conclusion, which will be fourfold. One, projects like human stock exchanges will happen. There are lots and lots of details to work out. There will be failures, there will be bankruptcies, but the idea is here to stay. Why? And this is my point too. Because the need is here. 1.2 trillion US dollar in student debt in the United States. And it's not only the United States. One student out of 3 in Wales, in Europe, say they cannot afford going to universities. So the need is here. And 3, the technology is here. In Milton Friedman days, such contract would have been enforceable. With the technology, with the digitalization of money, you will now be able to control your minority shareholding. And 4, ethically, it is very difficult to argue that debt is a better system than this current one. Thank you.
Okay, so you can see that that was back in 2013, 12. So the system was in place then that we know exists now, right? So in other words, what are we really talking about, right? Now here's the comic book that she was referring to, Human Stock Exchange, and it's basically, that's the premise of it. You know, what if man were listed on the stock exchange? So, you know, they're soft. I don't know if that's a soft rollout. You know, sometimes they do it like that. They do a TED Talk. Hey, what about this great thing? Look, all these athletes are, you know, making money. They're commoditizing themselves, but you're already commoditized. That's what people don't realize. I found this interesting LinkedIn article, Banknotes. It was published by Dr. Paul Farms, PhD, and it's by The Truth Denied, and I wanted to read it because I think it's a really well-written piece, and it'll explain a little bit what's going on. The American Banknote Building. American Banknote Company is a subsidiary of American Banknote Corporation, and products range from currencies and credit cards to passports, driver's licenses, and birth certificates. In the USA, citizens have never obtained their original birth certificates. What they possess is a copy. Furthermore, these copies have a serial number on them, issued on special bank bond paper and authorized by the American Banknote Company. More on this later. The original birth or naturalization record for every U.S. citizen is held with Washington, D.C., and the property and assets of every living U.S. citizen is pledged as collateral for the national debt. Every citizen is given a number, the red number on the birth certificate, and each live birth is reported to be valued at $650,000 to $750,000 Federal Reserve dollars in collateral from the Fed. Hence the saying, we are owned by the system, literally. Fact: the government recognizes two distinct classes of citizens, a state citizen and a federal citizen. Learn the difference now. There are hundreds of thousands of sovereigns in the United States of America, but I am not one of them. The sovereigns own their land in allodium, quote unquote. That is, the government does not have a financial interest in their land. Because of this, they do not need to pay property tax, school tax, real estate tax. Only the powers granted to the federal government in the Constitution for the United States of America define the laws that they have to follow. This is a very small subset of the laws most of us have to follow, unless they accept benefits from or contract with the federal government. They do not have to pay Social Security tax, federal income tax, or resident individual state income tax. They do not need to register their cars or get a driver's license unless they drive commercially. They will not have to get a health security card. They can own any kind of gun without a license or permit. They do not have to use the same court system that normal people do. See below for information. See citizenship. Unbeknownst to most people, the class term U.S. citizen, quote unquote, did not exist as a political status until 1866. It was a class and political status, quote unquote, created for the newly freed slaves and did not apply to the people inhabiting the states of the Union who were at that time state citizens, quote unquote. Mr. Richard James McDonald, former law enforcement, California. Now do the math. If indeed 317 million U.S. citizens are worth an average of $700,000 in collateral for the U.S. debt, that would mean the U.S. is worth roughly $222 trillion. Your birth certificate is really a banknote, which means you, the citizen, are what is known in the stock market as a commodity. Definition of commodity. 1. A basic good used in commerce that is interchangeable with other commodities of the same type. Commodities are most often used as inputs in the production of other goods or services. The quality of a given commodity may differ slightly, but it is essentially uniform across producers. When they are traded on an exchange, commodities must also meet specified minimum standards, also known as a basis grade. 2. Any good exchanged during commerce, which includes goods traded on a commodity exchange. So if you didn't catch it the first time, I will repeat myself at the risk of being redundant. U.S. citizens are owned by the United States Federal Reserve, a note in the stock exchange, being traded as a commodity. The note is printed by the American Banknote Company. Who are they? Background on American Banknote Company. The following was printed to the editor by the New York Times. American Banknote Company, New York, Saturday, December 2nd, 1865, New York Times. To the editor of the New York Times. The attention of this company has been drawn to a paragraph from the Washington Star of the 30th, giving an account of some examination made at the Treasury Department as to the evidence of the surreptitious impression of a genuine plate used by the counterfeiter in printing the backs of the spurious $100 compound interest note, having been taken after or before the plates and dies prepared by the American Banknote Company were delivered by that company to the Treasury Department. So it looks like there was an investigation there. Somebody may have stolen the plates that these things were printed on. So I just wanted to go down to this part here because I think it's also important. American's Banknote Company is a subsidiary of American Banknote Corporation. Today, following a variety of financial transformations, the American Banknote Corporation produces a wide variety of secure and official documents. With operations worldwide, its products range from currencies and credit cards to passports, driver's licenses, and birth certificates. How does this work? Why didn't you learn this in school? According to many sources, including an excerpt from researcher Brian Kelly, when the United States declared bankruptcy, pledged all Americans as collateral against the national debt, and confiscated all gold, eliminating the means by which you could pay, it also assumed legal responsibility for providing a new way for you to pay. And it did that by providing what is known as the exemption, an exemption from having to pay for anything. In practical terms, though, this meant giving each American something to pay with, and that something is your credit. Your value to society was then and still is calculated using actuarial tables, and at birth, bonds equal to this quote-unquote average value are created. I understand that this is currently between $1 and $2 million. These bonds are collateralized by your birth certificate, which becomes a negotiable instrument. The bonds are hypothecated, traded until their value is unlimited for all intents and purposes, and all that credit created is technically and rightfully yours. In point of fact, you should be able to go into any store in America and buy anything and everything in sight, telling the clerk to charge it to your exemption account, which is identified by a 9-digit number that you will recognize as your Social Security number without the dashes. It is your EIN, which stands for Exemption Identification Number. The Federal Reserve Bank is not owned and controlled by the U.S. government. Rather, it is owned and operated by international families. You are owned by foreigners, bankers, and your physical body is a collateral bond that has been issued on all your future earnings, your children's future earnings, etc. Were you taught this in school? Why not? If this is indeed the case, how do you change your current status? And I'll put the link in. It's a sort of a long process, but it tells you how to go through the process of getting back your sovereignty, basically, your sovereign status, inalienable rights, the status you were born with, such as constitutional rights of life, liberty, and property, which are not transferable and thus are termed inalienable. So this goes into like basically how you can go through the process. I'm personally of the opinion that we're going to get our sovereignty back just in one fell swoop, because to make people go through this onerous process, and I talked about this in one of my other videos, is so much work when we shouldn't have to do it. In other words, this is the scam. This is how they commoditized us and turned us into a commodity, or capitalized us and trade us. And you can go on sites and look up your through this birth certificate number. Go on, and I'm going to show you how to do it, where you can look up year by year how they have taken out, because what the woman said is correct. All the bonds that are sold on you are 30 years, usually bonds. And the ones I looked up, I did this for myself last night. I typed in my birth certificate number into this site that I'll show you later, and I'm going to show you a video how the guy tells you how to do it. And it was there. There was money there from 1980 forward. Apparently, that site doesn't let you go back past 1969 to look up these bonds. But they're issued in 30 years, and there's tens of thousands of dollars of them, year by year that are issued on us, and we don't even know it exists in there. So this is another article that I found, Investment Watch. Your birth certificate is traded on the stock exchange. You are a human resource. And of course, the presentation that this one on YouTube was taken down, right? Because they don't want you to see it. I think part of this is also that they've been trying to put this system in place for a long time, because they do want to trade you as a human, your human, being. Just trade people as assets. Why not? It's just another revenue stream, right? And you could see how in the comic book, they have this watch, and the watch is going to be always on, and it's like some gadget, and it'll show what you're worth, and it'll show what your value is going right at the moment. And, of course, this is how they show it to you, right? They make up a comic or they make a movie, and then little by little, I start bringing it in. I also noticed another thing real quick in my search. The human stock exchange was in development right now, actually, and it had to stop, I think, due to COVID restriction. But it's in development right now, and it's called Human Stock Exchange. So I don't know if this is from the comic, or if it's just a new series. But again, here it is, like them bringing it in, and who knows, this might be like their way of softly revealing the fact that, hey, we've been doing this to you like your whole life, and now this is the continuation of it. It's even better. But I don't think that's going to work. People are hip to the scam by now, and enough people have dug into this. I remember hearing about this 6, 7, 8 years ago. I watched a YouTube video about it, and the guy was showing you how to look up the stuff on Fidelity, and I couldn't do it on Fidelity, but I actually could do it on this other site. So let's watch the vid real quick. It's only 3 minutes about this guy, how he looked his up. And then I'll show you the site where I looked it up last night, mine, and where I think works better than maybe the Fidelity. Maybe they did something to the Fidelity where you can't do it, or I couldn't figure it out on the Fidelity site, but this site seems easier. So this is a guy that just made a video about Treasury Direct calculation, how to look up your birth certificate. So let's just watch this real quick.
I love you guys. Hope you guys are enjoying the rest of your evening. So me and others have been telling you about how you were sold when your parents had the straw man made up, which is your birth certificate bond, when it had it printed up, and you were sold on the U.S. stock market. And what happened was, this bond has been growing interest over years and years and years from the date and time you were born until now. And what you can do is get on the Treasury Direct. Go into your Google search engine, put in Treasury Direct, and then once you come up, you want to hit the search bar up here in the right-hand corner and type in paper bond savings or paper bonds, and then you will get the calculate the value of your paper savings bonds, bond or bonds. So over here it will say series, and you want to keep it on EE bonds. On here where it says denomination, it's going to be on 50. Okay, it's going to be on 50, but you want to put it on 10,000 because you want to get, this is just a rough estimate of how much so far has been gained.
So just to pause it here real quick, guys, when I was doing this, everything he's saying is right. Just with the issue date, it wouldn't pick up anything prior to 1980 when I tried it. So start your search from 1980 forward, and it should pick up the dates. I don't know why it won't pick up before that. Maybe because the system or something. I'm not sure, or it just doesn't go back that far. But so try your issue date from 1980 going forward. All right. Thanks.
Gained an interest and value over all the years from the time you were born. So what you would do is you would go here where it says bond serial number. Now on your birth certificate in the left bottom corner, you're going to see.
Just another thing real quick. Birth certificates are different from different time periods. Just your birth, it should be your birth number, whatever your birth certificate number is. That may have different letters and number variations. It should just be numbers. I'm thinking. I don't know if it's actually letters or not. So try whatever's on your birth certificate. Just type in those numbers with the dashes and see if it works. If not, if there's other numbers you can find, then try it until you can get it to work. All right. All right.
A letter, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 digits. It looks like.
Yeah, mine didn't have a letter.
4, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 digits. So you're going to put that there. And then you're going to go over here where it says issue date. And you're going to put in just the month. Only the month and the year, the 4-digit year. So my wife was born. This is her bond note, or her birth certificate bond. So my wife was born 1091, so boom. Then you go over here to calculate. This is going to give you a calculation. It's showing the total price. She was sold for $5,000 when she was born. The total value right now is $17,352. The total interest that has grown over from the time she's born until today has been $12,352. And the year-to-date interest rate right now is $340. Okay.
And also, there's if it says MA, that means it's a matured bond. I had ones on mine. I went back to 1980 and started there. I had bonds every single month issued, and they were 30-year bonds and some had matured already from 1980 and 2010. And MA would be where it would say matured if they're already. Otherwise, they could still be active and stuff like that. And I even found ones on mine that were set to mature in 2024, 25, which is like the future. So I'm wondering how they know if they must be pretty confident I'm going to live 4 or 5 more years, because some of the ones I found on myself were from, matured in 2024, 25. So get back to the video. Sorry.
So, for anybody that thinks this shit is bullshit, you better open your eyes and see you've been sold. Okay? You work as a slave. That's when you give all your energy, and they have sold you. It's time to wake up, people. I love you all. Have a good day.
Also, I found bonds on mine. Like, I tried different years. I was in a car accident, so I even put in the year that I was in the accident, and just to see like if was there more bonds issued certain years and months as others. And I mean, some of them were in mine where the total value was over 80,000 for some of these, and so you can see that uh, it's not fake. You can look it up. And the other thing that's really interesting is that with your social security card is apparently that you can use it to pay. You are supposed to be able to use it, but of course they don't. The system isn't set up that way. This is the site again, treasurydirect.gov, where you can look up the your bonds, and again you would hit the search. So let's just go back. Because it's you got to go there on a sort of strange. You'll go do a search for paper bonds. In the search, you'll type in paper bonds, hit go, and then a search will come up, and you'll come down here to calculate the value of your paper savings bonds. That'll leave you here at the treasurydirect.gov page, and then you will put denomination to 10,000, put in your birth certificate number here, and then the date would be zero, like 10, 1981, whatever dates after 1980. I couldn't get anything to work pre 1980, but so that's that. And that's basically the end of my presentation. Just to say, you can look it up, and we're going to get all these monies. We're going to get these are made in our name. These are illegal bonds sold against our name that we never agreed to, and the monies that were made by these people are all going to come back to us. So depending on how long you've been alive, that I'm assuming will be a larger figure, right? If you're 70, 80 years old and they've been doing this to you for 80 years, yeah, they've issued a whole lot more bonds against your name than, say, if you're only like 25 years old. But the point is that this has been happening, and this happens with every single human being, at least in the United States and probably a lot of other places when you're born. And they do it through your birth certificate. So I appreciate you guys listening to my thing, and let's do some more research and just keep an eye on this human stock exchange, because it looks like they're working on it for coming out soon. All right, I hope you guys are well, and talk soon. Peace.